Hey guys, tonight we are in John chapter 10. We open up with this story of Jesus talking about sheep, about being a shepherd. And he starts off, and there's a couple things you got to understand about the days and being a shepherd of those days. In the first verse, he says, "He who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in another way, that man is a thief or a robber." Back in those days, they would have places that were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Think of yourself like a big fenced-in area, like a corral. And it would be that during night, one or multiple shepherds would bring their sheep to this corral, and they would be able to sleep. And they would pay a man, the gatekeeper, to stand at the door to make sure that nobody took their sheep or no animals got into the sheep pen, right? So it's kind of a little subcontracting job for the gatekeeper. And so with that idea, Jesus goes on and he says, anybody who doesn't enter that sheepfold, right, that corral by the door, if he jumps over the wall or jumps over the bricks and starts stealing sheep, which happened often, he would be a thief or a robber, right? Only the shepherd would come in through the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper would know him, and they would let him in, right? So anybody else, they're a thief or a robber. But he who enters the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him, the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls out his own sheep by name and leads them out. So here Jesus is using this sheepfold, this corral, and he says, the one who enters through the gatekeeper, that's the shepherd. But notice what the shepherd does, right? The sheep hear his voice, so he spends time with the sheep. The sheep know who he is. He calls his own sheep by name. He has a personal connection with his sheep, and he leads them out. He's not driving them out. He's not pushing them out. It's that he leads out and his sheep follow. And so we have this idea of this story of the shepherd and the sheep know him. They spent time with him. We have all of this, right? When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, he leads them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. So once they're all out, they will follow that shepherd wherever that shepherd goes. And it says that they know his voice. Many times in the days that a shepherd would have a certain call, maybe a whistle, maybe a command, that over time, these sheep have spent so much time that when he goes to the gatekeeper and the gatekeeper opens that gate and he might yell, "My sheep," right? Whatever that he has, that he wouldn't even have to go into the corral, that those sheep would come out and follow him because they know his voice. But he says, what? A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying. Jesus is talking to these Jews, these Pharisees, and he's just drastically saying that he's a shepherd, that his sheep, his followers, his disciples, the godly people, they know his voice. And anybody who doesn't know Jesus' voice, doesn't know that Jesus is God, they're not his sheep, right? That we have two separate herds, right? Jesus is God's herd, and then we have the world's or Satan's herd. So Jesus again said to them, because they didn't understand it, "Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep," right? So this gives a little different scenario, that sheepfold, that corral, right, and that we just talked about. And sometimes there would be a door and there would be a gatekeeper, but they would have these sheepfolds all over the countryside. And so some that were far away from towns, away from the cities, they would not have gatekeepers. Somebody wouldn't just ride out there to hopefully that somebody would bring their herd. And so what happened was shepherds get together, they build a bunch of rocks and kind of this rudimentary corral. And then it wouldn't have a door, it wouldn't have a gatekeeper. So the shepherd would lay down in front of that door and get sleep, and he would keep his sheep in, but he would also protect from any animals or any thieves coming into that, right? So here, Jesus is using the same scenario a little bit different. He says, I am that door. I'm the one that says who can come in and who can come out. I'm the one who protects those who are in, and I'm the one who keeps the bad things out, right? I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. Jesus is saying, all the people who has come before me, before I was that door trying to get at the sheep, they're thieves and robbers. They're liars. They're workers of Satan. They're workers of this world. He's calling the Pharisees tools of Satan, right? And then we see in verse 9 the bold statement, I am the door. Now, if you're keeping track of these 7 statements, this would be the third, or for me, it's 4, because I know everybody says John has 7, but I really count as 8 when he says, that he says, I am, right? He's saying, when he says, I am, he was saying he was God back in chapter 8. So he said, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am, right? I am the great I am, and I am the door. He says, I'm the door. I'm the one that anybody who gets the sheep is through me. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Now, we know this verse a lot, right? John 10:10, a lot of people quote it, and we talk about Satan. But let me just stretch your mind on this, right? The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Who is the thief? The thief is Satan, right? We use that verse all the time. We say that. But also, who is the thief? The thief is any person who comes to the sheep that is not coming through the door. So it's not just Satan. It's workers of Satan. It's lost people. It's people who do not know Jesus Christ. People who are trying to lead people away from Christ. So there's lots of thieves. Okay, there's lots of thieves. Of course, now they're all under the umbrella of Satan. But there are lots of thieves. So when we think about this verse, it's not just about Satan. It's about anybody who is not saved. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. The word abundantly means satisfaction or contentment. It doesn't necessarily talk about how long you're going to live. It's just talking about the quality of life, right? The things that we all want, peace, love, joy, hope, right? All those things that we want. That is what it's talking about. Then we get in verse 11, the 5th statement, right? I am the good shepherd. I'm the bread of life. I'm the light of the world. I am the door. And now I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd, what makes a good shepherd? A good shepherd lays down his life for a sheep. A shepherd is a shepherd. Somebody watches a sheep, but a good shepherd is a person who puts the sheep above his own life. That's the definition of a good shepherd. He who is hired hand is not a shepherd. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep. Now remember, Jesus hasn't gone to the cross yet. This is all prophetic. And he knows what's coming. The Jews do not. The disciples do not. Right? They're not comprehending all what Jesus is going to have to do. But Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd. What makes the good shepherd? One who lays down his life for the sheep. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We are the sheep. We are the believers. And he is the good shepherd. He is the one laying down his life. But notice verse 16, it says, I have other sheep that are not of this fold. That's talking about the Gentiles, right? He's talking to Jerusalem. He's talking to the Jews, the Israel. But he's saying, I have other sheep that are not of this fold. They're of a different fold, but I must bring them together. Jews and Gentiles coming together, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock and one shepherd. We see this. We see that we are all equal. And Paul spends a great deal of time writing in his letters on how Jew and Gentile are equal, right? So this is something that Jesus is saying. Once again, it's prophetic because Jesus and his disciples mainly came for Israel, right? There's Gentiles that believed and were added unto faith, but for most part, Gentiles were not added until the ascension of Jesus. And the church of Jerusalem goes out, they start to spread, they go into Samaria, then they go into the worlds, and then Paul steps on the scene and basically does his missionary journeys across the world. So a little prophetic of what he's saying. Verse 18, no one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. Nobody takes Jesus' life. He gives it up. And why does he give it up? Because he has the authority to lay it down, and he has the authority to lay it up. I'm going to die because God has given me the permission to die, and I'm going to resurrect because God has given me the permission to resurrect. Everything happens under the sovereignty of God. Let's see, verse 20, many of them said he is a demon or is insane. We talked about that last week. Many people thought demon-possessed people were just mentally ill, insane, lost their minds. So those words are the same word. And others said that there's no way you can have a demon because he's still doing the works of God, right? And then we jump kind of scenes, and Jesus is at the Feast of Dedication. We call this Hanukkah. This is the cleansing and rededication of the temple. We don't see a lot about this because Hanukkah starts in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. When what we call the Antichrist, or the preliminary Antichrist, when we have Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth comes in and he destroys, sacrifices the pigs. He kills 80,000 Jews. He turns the temple into a prostitution ring. He puts an idol of Zeus in the temple, and he desecrates the temple, right? The abomination of desolation. And so after that, a group of Jews under a leader of Maccabeus comes in and basically kicks them all out, and they cleanse and rededicate the temple for God, and that goes all the way until AD 70 when that temple is destroyed. But every year they celebrate that, and they still celebrate it now, and it's called Hanukkah. And so during this time, during Hanukkah, so December, right? It's our Christmas time. Took place. It was winter. Jesus was walking in the temple, the porch of Solomon, which is the east side of the temple. Jews gathered around him, which wasn't nice. It was the Jews, right? These are the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the mean guys, right? It says they gathered around them. It wasn't to sing Kumbaya and Christmas carols. It was a revolt. They were there to harm him. And they say, how long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christos, if you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. They're saying, just tell us you're the Messiah so we can kill you. That's literally what they're saying. And Jesus answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The Jews want him to say, I am the Messiah. I am the Christos. Okay, they want that word. Jesus has never used that word, because when he says Messiah, or when they say Messiah, there's a lot that comes with that. A political, a military, everything that goes with that. And that's not the reason that Jesus came, right? He came to be a suffering servant, not the Messiah that through bad apologetics and exegesis of Israel's nation that they thought the Messiah would be. But Jesus said, I have told you. And we've even seen in the book of John, right? Jesus has said, I'm the one who's come from heaven. Whoever believes in me has eternal life. I am the Son of God. I judge all humanity. Honor me as the same as you honor God the Father. All the Old Testament speaks of me. I perfectly reveal God the Father. I always please God and never sin. I am sent from God. Before Abraham, I am. I am the Son of Man prophesied by Daniel. I will raise myself from the dead. I am the bread of life. I'm the light of the world. I am the door. I'm the good shepherd. He has said so many things saying that he is the Son of God. He is the Messiah, but he has not used the word Christos, the Messiah, right? So he hasn't used that, and that's what they're waiting for. But then he says, the works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me. So he says, not only have I told you, but I've done actions. I've done miracles. I've done things to prove to you that I am God. My sheep hear my voice. I know them. They follow me. I give them eternal life. Notice this. This is just interesting. Jesus gives them eternal life. He gives them eternal life. When somebody believes, they are given eternal life. It's not something that they die and they lay in the grave and wait for Jesus to come back. Then they get eternal life. Eternal life is given at the point of faith, right? So I give them eternal life. They will never perish. No one will snatch them in the hands. My Father who has given them to me. We talked about this a couple Sundays ago, that we're love gifts from God to the Son. And then he says, I and the Father are one. Once again, he is stating that he is God, right? He is the Messiah. He is the Christos. And notice verse 31, the Jews picked up stones again to stone him. They knew exactly what he was saying, but once again, if you keep reading, it says that they tried to arrest him, but they can't, right? And so he gets away from them because his hour has not yet come. We end in verse 40. He goes to the east side of the Jordan River where John the Baptist was. We call this the country of Perea. He goes over there and he is there with the disciples of John the Baptist. And it says, John did no sign, but everything that John said about Jesus was true, and many believed him here. So just as John the Baptist drew large crowds out to the wilderness to hear that the Messiah was coming, when the Messiah went out there, large crowds went out there and they were saved and they were baptized out there where John the Baptist was. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense for you. And that's just a good way to end tonight, right? And so we will see you tomorrow on chapter 11. God bless.